Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. We're also available on Anchor if you prefer our audio versions. And today I'm joined by Craig and Dean, two Liverpool OGs from the podcast who are on a regular basis. And today we're going to do a legend series, a very special one that's near and dear to all our hearts. The one, the only, Stevie G, Mr. Stephen Gerrard. Lads, how are we?
All good.
All good, my man.
Brilliant. I was looking at this one, and this could have been one that we could have started the series with, but I thought we'd give it time because, like a fine wine, it gets better with age, And I thought that we dropped this one today. This is one that's very special and near and dear to my heart. I mean, he's been a stalwart at Liverpool throughout my whole fan base at Liverpool anyway, So I suppose, where do we begin with this one? Liverpool, 1998, 2015, 504 caps, 120 goals, 120 probably very important goals, not just 120 goals. Went off to the Galaxy for a year, 34 appearances, 5 goals. So 538 appearances, 125 goals. Major honours won, 2 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, 1 Community Shield. We kind of have to mention that, but normally I don't want to. A UEFA Champions League, a UEFA Cup, and a UEFA Super Cup. So to say he's had a very decorated career would be, doing the man a disservice. Unfortunately, he never won a Premier League with us, but no doubt in the future we'll put that right when he becomes manager one day. Dean, talk to me. Where do we start with this man's career?
Exactly. Where do you start? They missed at Liverpool. Him and Jamie Carragher, like, they should make a movie one day about the two of them and the whole. I just love the fact there was I know we finished that LA Galaxy, and that was just the experience of different culture. If you hear them talking about, like, he had options to stay in England, he just credit to him. Like, to him, there was Liverpool and only Liverpool. There was no way he was going to play for anyone else in England, regardless of what was available to him money-wise, and probably going on and doing a Lampard, probably going to City and maybe picking up a medal or two. But my first memory of Gerrard, like, I remember he scored his first goal for Liverpool on my birthday in '99 versus Sheffield Wednesday. I remember we were in the gate bar, me, my dad, my mum, a few other members of the family. I was only 14, I think. And I remember him coming on. The jerseys were 5 sizes too big for him. The Ballymun fringe haircut. He coming on, you're thinking, this fella looks like he's gonna fucking murder someone. Comes on and scores an absolute worldly of a goal. Beats about 10 of them. Slots into the bottom corner. Goes away with the fucking banging the chest and all. And supposedly since then we never really looked back, did we? You said it there about 120 goals for Liverpool, and I'd say you probably count on one hand how many goals in that 120 absolutely meant fuck all, because he commanded games. He demanded respect on the pitch. Like, from the very instant that he came into that Liverpool team, it wasn't a progressive period. As soon as he came into that Liverpool team, he had that aura around him, he had that aura about him. He commanded respect on the pitch, and you could see that his peers respected him as well. You know what I mean? He'd shown it off the match pitch, on the training field to these guys. I'm not the young lad coming in from Liverpool, and I'm just trying to make a name for myself as the young lad from Liverpool. He went on to be possibly one of the best midfielders the game has ever seen, at international level as well. And that was in a time where you had Lampard and Scholes, and even now, when the three of them have retired, there's still that debate, who was the best out of the three. And I'm not being biased. For me, Steven Gerrard is, how many times, you said 504 games for Liverpool, 114 games for England. So what? That's 618 games. How many times in that 618 games has he grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck? You know what I mean? And dragged teams through the trenches, because of the 504 games for Liverpool, probably 85% of them, if he wasn't in that team, we probably would have lost. You know, you're looking at videos of him and the goals he scored, like last minute winners, getting us out of holes. The Steven Gerrard FA Cup final, Istanbul, Olympiacos. Like, to me, this podcast is an injustice, because you could sit and talk about Steven Gerrard for a week.
I think when you look at him, you touched on something there. I mean, he was Mr. Consistent as well, wasn't he? Like, he was always an 8 or 9 out of 10 most weeks, and he was always nearly man of the match every week.
Yeah.
And his influence on the pitch, like when we talk in these days, you know, we sometimes talk about like Harry Maguire, and we talk about these captains and stuff like that. No, but again, such an influential player. And yeah, the debate comes up all the time about himself and Lampard and Scholes and stuff like that. But in terms of, you know, you could look at Lampard and say, yeah, with all the leagues he won and stuff like that, and if you look at the trophies, yeah, Lampard might edge it. But if you look back at the teams that Lampard played in, and you compare that to the teams that Gerrard played in, you know, there's a gulf there in a performance in terms of achieving stuff. So
that's why I like. That's being completely unbiased as well that I picked Gerrard. You look at Scholes. Scholes did it in league championship winning teams. Lampard did it in championship winning teams. I don't think Frank Lampard would. If Frank Lampard had came into that, look, to be honest, if Chelsea didn't come into money, Lampard doesn't sign for Chelsea. Okay, if Lampard would never would Lampard have stood out in a mediocre Chelsea team, i.e., before the massive investment came in? I don't think so. You know, it's all well and good when you're doing it with. It's like I always doubted Phil Foden. Now he's come on leaps and bounds now, but I always said in his first like season and a half, I was like, it's all well and good. You're the young English lad, you're coming in, but you're doing it with 10 world-class players around you. So if you have a bad game, it's not even noticed. You know, Gerrard done that. We got close to the league in 3 seasons we were very, very close to the league with Gerrard in the team. But every year he did it consistently, regardless of the shit players that were around him. You know what I mean? He could easily have went to Chelsea and won leagues. You know, at the end, like, as much as a lot of people fell out of love with Steven Gerrard when that whole thing about wanting to go to Chelsea came about. But when you're older and you sit and think about it now, the guy was a world beater at Liverpool. And who would have blamed him? You might have hated him when he done it. But when you sit back and think about it now, you're thinking, you know, he deserved to win a Premier League. You know what I mean? He deserved to win a Premier League. So if you looked at it now and said, right, he went to Chelsea and he won two or three Premier Leagues and won a Champions League, you'd have to put your hands up and say, credit to him. You know what I mean? A player with such high expectations of himself and a team deserves to play at that level. But unfortunately for him, he didn't. He stayed at Liverpool and never won a Premier League. So for me, that's why I always pick Gerrard as the better of the three, because he done it in bad teams at Liverpool year in, year out.
Yeah. There's always, Craig, I suppose, that interesting debate as well when the Gerrard and Lampard thing comes up. And for years, the England debate was that they couldn't play together. But yeah, Chelsea came in twice heavily to try and sign him. And they weren't signing him as a replacement for Lampard. He was going to go in and play with him. Craig, drop us your initial thoughts on Gerrard going back then.
Yeah, the earliest kind of memories, I was 8, I think, when he kind of broke onto the scene. So I do remember, I think he originally came in to replace Redknapp when he got injured in midfield. And then he actually partnered him the following season. And I think he was wide right originally. And he was very bad. I think he was nervous and his tackles were all over the shop. I remember he was flying in the lads, like, got sent off against Everton, I think, as Kevin Campbell or somebody. Flew into challenges, but that's just, you're a young lad, Liverpool, you know. I remember his goal against can't believe I'm saying it, the Worthington Cup final against Man United. But you know, when he came onto a ball, there was no second guessing it, and he knew himself where it was going. Dean touched on it really well. I think if anyone's going to drag you through games or they want the ball to fall to anyone, how many times, time and time again, did he do it? You know, the West Ham final, he scored in the game. And we're not even relying on a centre forward here. This isn't a striker to pull us out of games. This isn't a number 9. This is a fella who we shouldn't even have to rely on to get us through these games. But no one else has ever stepped up in them times and grabbed the by the scruff. And he has. He's been Mr. Reliable. He's Mr. Liverpool. You know, as Dean rightfully said, he could have played in any team, let alone with Chelsea. You know, he could have been anywhere. Obviously, we all would have been angry. We all would have been upset. But you look back at it now, and we would want him to have that. I know, obviously, thank God he stayed, but he deserves it. You know what I mean? The amount of teams that he's been in.
Dominic cut cross there. We're talking about the whole Chelsea move and all this. When we battered Real Madrid 4-1 at Anfield, and he's coming off the pitch, and Raul comes over and puts the arm around him. He's like, "Hey, Stevie, want to come and play for Real Madrid?" Like, you know what I mean? It's one of the best strikers in football history coming over to you after you've pulled all their pants down and done them in the arse without any lube and saying, "We want you to play for us," and turning around saying, "Nah, mate, I think I'll stay on dreary old Liverpool."
I think it was a shame that, you know, when we got the likes of Torres in, we got the likes of Suarez in Lincoln with him, Alonso, Mascherano, it was too late in a way. As in, we never had that before.
It's always the case of, you look at the players, right? The players that are there now, the players that were there before him, but you put Gerrard in the middle of any Liverpool team you're ever going to pick, right? And then you pick the best 10 players around his time, like lads from the team now, like Van Dijk, Salah. Like, imagine what could have been.
That's exactly the timing. Yeah.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. But imagine what could have been. I love listening to him talking about playing with Torres, because for that, other than us winning the league, for me, that was, every weekend I just enjoyed sitting down and watching them. It was like they were telepathic to each other. Like, Torres would be running the opposite way on the pitch and he'd backheel a ball into Gerrard, or vice versa. The two of them playing together, like, it shoulda, woulda, coulda. Yeah, it was absolutely magic watching Torres and Gerrard together. Gerrard said himself, he said, "That's the best. I was in my prime. That was the best football I've ever played in my career."
I think when you look back at his career over Liverpool, you know, and every time we came close to winning the league and stuff like that, it was unfortunate for him because we were always just missing something. Either we were really good up front, or we were really good in midfield, and we were missing something at the back, or we were really strong at the back and we hadn't got enough up front. And it was always just a kind of, I always remember through those transfers windows and the transitions through, you know, from, you know, Houllier through to, you know, Rafa through to, you know, Hodgson through to, you know, Rodgers and all. We were always missing just that one or two pieces of the jigsaw to really put us out there, you know, and it was unfortunate for him. But we'll go back to 1998, 2004, that's the period where it kind of really all begins. Debuts the 29th of November 1998, and spoke in his book about how that first season he struggled badly because he was brought in, believe it or not, originally he was brought in as a defensive midfielder.
CDM, yeah.
Defensive midfielder. And he
Can you imagine him? Sorry, can you imagine his career had to stand out as central defensive midfielder?
Oh,
can you imagine how many red cards he would have had from trying to stop play?
I wouldn't be as concerned about that as I would have been without his goals. We'd probably be in the championship, you know. But then he had said that he felt that he was out of position all season and he really struggled. He was out of his depth. Now imagine Steven Gerrard saying he's out of his depth on any football pitch, you know. As Craig alluded to, 99 he gets sent off in the derby. Absolutely upends Kevin Campbell, who's a monster of a player. And then he started suffering from some back issues and some groin issues, which was, I remember at the time they were trying to figure out what was going on with him and they couldn't figure it out. And eventually they came back and said it was actually an issue with accelerated growth. He went to a specialist, I think in Switzerland, who eventually figured out what was going on with the back and the groin issues. Recovers 2000-2001, a season we all remember fondly. Still have the cushion here on the bed from it. The treble winning season. Never forget it was
Or
fun.
if you want to be like Man United fans, we actually won 5 trophies that season.
Well, you know, we're not gonna go to those steps now. There's no need to go there. But plays 50 games, scores 10 goals, wins the treble, and is the PFA Young Player of the Year. So this is where we see the growth of Steven Gerrard, the legend. You know what I mean? 2002 wins the Charity Shield and obviously the UEFA Super Cup, as Dean alluded to the 5 trophies. 2003 wins the League Cup, beating Man United 2-0.
Yeah.
And after a year as Liverpool vice captain, replaces Sami Hyypiä as the captain of Liverpool.
Yeah.
Like for a chap who grew up local as a Liverpool lad, to step on the pitch and be the captain of Liverpool, I don't think there's any higher moment in your career, really. You know.
Just before you go any further on that, just shout out to Gerrard Houllier for seeing the potential in him. Credit to Gerrard Houllier. Stephen talks a lot about how everyone talks about, you had Kenny in your life, you had Raf in your life. He always alludes back to the man that got him to where he was in his career was Gerrard Houllier. Rest in peace.
Yeah,
also the man who actually convinced him to be the attacking midfielder that he wanted, not the defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
To replaces Sami Hyypiä as captain. 2004 comes around, and he has mixed feelings about staying at Liverpool. I think he's not sure whether Liverpool shares his ambition.
Yeah.
Which often happens with players, and not necessarily is a bad thing. Chelsea come in, and they came in heavy for him, but he stays and makes the point that he'd rather win less trophies with his beloved Liverpool than more trophies with Chelsea, because he felt it would be more meaningful to him. So this is the measure of the man. And off we go with the Rafa Benitez era. You know, so let's move on. 2004 to 2007. Season started with lots of injuries. Gerrard was out till November. I remember those ones because that was the...
was that against United?
Yeah, I think it was. He suffered the injury, you know. December the 8th, which is a date that we all remember, scores that famous goal against Olympiacos. That to this day, I watched that goal back at least once a week because that.
Do you know what makes it even more sweeter? Is the fact that Andy Gray is an Everton fan.
Yeah. And listen, whatever we think about Andy Gray, I mean, hats off to the man, because actually his commentary on it adds to the spectacle of the goal.
Yeah. I'll never forget the comment. He goes, he didn't want to wake up on Thursday in European football. I was like, yes, he didn't.
and that goal was the catalyst that sent us on the road to Istanbul. Without a shadow of a doubt, when that goal went in, you know. So let's move on then. After the highs of that, scores an OG, losing the League Cup to Chelsea.
In Cardiff.
Cardiff, so. Yeah. So then we move on then. Let's get on the road. The Miracle of Istanbul. And you know, football fans sometimes don't realise this, but when you go and you look at that Liverpool team man for man, and you stack it up against that Milan team man for man, this was an absolute miracle. No doubt about it. Craig, give us your thoughts on the Miracle of Istanbul.
I remember it like it was yesterday, as we all do. I remember at half-time bawling my eyes out, not knowing what was going on. Like, I was obviously on one hand, you understand like this Milan team would do this to any other team in the country at that given time. You look at our team, I think what we had more than anything else, not only we had Stevie G, but we had hope. You know, we had we didn't have the best 11, but we had hope that, you know, it's European football, it's Liverpool. I remember going into the second half and I was like, you know, even if we got a goal back, just to go out on a bit of a fucking limb, and I remember the ball came in from Reese. Gerrard flicks it to the back post, indeed is nowhere near it. And I remember him just saying, come on. And I was like, he actually believes that we can, you know, we're going to fucking do this. You know, straight from that goal, he didn't turn around and say, there's a consolation, leave it at that. He actually, when that goal went in, he said, let's get this and let's go for it. You know what I mean?
I think that's one of those moments where, you know, we always give credit to the Liverpool fan base because they never give up and they do always believe. You know, those slogans that you see around, you know, the Klopp era and stuff like that, those slogans have been around the club for like donkey's years at this stage, you know what I mean?
It means the world. It makes a difference.
Yeah. Dane, Istanbul, talk to me.
Right. I'm not joking, right? Every time I talk about Istanbul, and I'm not just saying it because that night was the best night of my life. I can remember second for second of that day. If I was to sit down and just have a conversation about the day of that match, I could like tell you absolutely everything I did, from the amount of times I had a piss, because I remember it. I'll never, ever, until my baby boy is born, I will always say, I might even say after he's born, that's still the best night of my life, because I was only start. she won't watch the podcast. I only sneak onto our YouTube account and subscribe and like, just to get the views up. But the submarine bar up there at about 4 o'clock about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Absolutely, if you've ever been in the submarine bar or you've ever seen the videos of the Ireland games and stuff, absolutely jammers. I'm not joking, you could not move in the place. We were up on the second floor, on the balcony, massive screen, just everybody. I think even people who supported like Man United wore Liverpool shorts just to get in and enjoy it. Obviously first of all, let's talk about that Milan team.
Yeah.
You look at the Liverpool team, right? Dudek, Finnan, Carragher, Hippier, Jimmy Triori and his telescopic leg. Alonso, Garcia, Gerrard, Reese, Harry Kewell, who for me, without injuries, he could have been absolutely phenomenal for Liverpool. It was a shame about the injuries. And Milan, Barros. Now, on paper, you're looking at that team and you're thinking, that's not a bad team. That's decent, right? Then you name the Milan team. Dida in goal. Cafu, one of the best right backs to ever play the game. Maldini playing left back, probably the best to play the game. Nesta and Stam. Pirlo, Seedorf, Gattuso, Kaká. You'd probably play a goalkeeper with just Shevchenko and Crespo up front, and some teams would struggle to beat the three of them. Like, even on speeches, like Liverpool shouldn't have won that game.
It was like,
you know what I mean? We shouldn't have won that game. Then the game starts, and then you have the early goal. We're getting tore to pieces. That could have been about 7 or 8-0 at half time. The set, just some of the play from Crespo and Shevchenko, the little dink over Dudek and all, even as much as you were hurting inside you, I remember just standing in awe when they scored that second goal, the long ball from Kaká, like literally pin perfect past Carragher's toe, and then Crespo with the little dink, and you're just thinking to yourself, yeah, whatever hope you had when you started on the piss today is just gone now. You're thinking to yourself, if we can just, as you said, damage limitations. If we're going to lose, go out on your shield, like lose by a goal, even 3-1. But half time, you're thinking to yourself, right, I need to get myself a stiff drink. No more of these points business. I need the heavy stuff. Try and get to the bar. No go. Into the off license next door. I'm not joking. I remember everything about that night. I got a nagging of peach snaps and just gulped it down. Stood outside for about 5 minutes. Missed the first goal. Missed Gerrard's header. It was like tried to get back in, but the time I got back in, it was 3-3. There was that many people, yeah. So I missed the 3 goals. So you get in, everyone's fucking. It's just people with their tops off, singing, lads just pouring points over their head. Like when it we go into extra time then, and then you have the Carragher suffering with horrible cramp knocking, like getting his fucking toenail onto balls to take it off Shevchenko's foot. That save from Dudek, the double save from Shevchenko, for me, one of the best saves in the history of football. How that didn't go in. Honestly, though, when he saved that, I said to myself, so we're going to win this. And people were like, we've got penalties to come here, lads are absolutely dead. I says, they might look dead. This final whistle goes. We're at being 3-0 down. I'm telling you now, we're going to fucking win this. Oh, man, I swear to God, like, just when Gerrard lifted that cup, I had a point of Bulmer's in my hand, and I just put the point on the top of my head and just start roaring and crying. I never thought I'd see Liverpool winning the champ. Never mind the Premier League. I never thought I'd see us win the Champions League. Yeah, again, goosebumps here talking about, but hands down, the best night of my life. And he's the man that started, got the header, and he got us back. You could gene up the fans after that goal. I just wish I'd have been a fly on the wall in the dressing room at half time just to hear what he said to the players, because that's going to be one of the mysteries everyone talks about in Liverpool. That's going to be what actually was said in the dressing room at half time. I know they made a movie about it, but yeah, just magical.
I remember the match. I watched the match here in the house, actually, where I had a few friends over and all. And I remember when the third goal went in, their third goal. I just remember I was there and there was a silence. There was a silence in the stadium. And I remember the halftime whistle blew. And again, as you said about this Milan team, like, you know, you're talking, it could be 11 Ballon d'Or winners. You know what I mean? Like, when you think
11.
about it.
I think it was 11.
But I remember that third goal for Milan went in and there was just a silence in the stadium. And I remember the commentators at the time commentating about it, going, well, this is, you know, far from what we expected. And I remember that image of them going to the scoreboard and the scoreboard showing the 3-0 and the names of the players and stuff like that. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to go out and I'm going to put on a kettle. I'm going to have a cup of tea. And all I can hope for is that in the second half, we either keep a clean sheet and nick a goal and just make it look respectable. Because I knew that all these, you know, different fan bases were ready to go in on us and stuff like that. I knew the Man United fans and all, they were ready to go in on us and stuff like that. And I said, just make it respectable. And then I remember Gerrard scoring that header, and I just thought, and the arms going every way, and the fans were going ballistic. And I just thought, if we could just get another goal, we might just put a wobble on them here. You never know what might happen.
Who was commentating on the game?
I think it was Clive Tilsley.
Yeah, Clive Tilsley. Because remember when the heroine, he goes, hold on. And you know that excitement in his voice. He's like, something's going to happen here.
And I remember when we got the second goal and it was 3-2, and I remember him saying, could the turnaround happen? Could it happen? Are they back? And all this, you know, and the excitement was just running through me. And I can feel the nerves now and the electricity running through my body right now as I talk.
I'm still getting it, yeah.
You still get the buzz, you know.
And then I just remember when the third goal went in, and, you know, I've had the same, I'm welling up here now thinking about this. And it's the same feelings I got when we got the goal against Barca with Origi. You know what I mean? It was just unbelievable. It's like a weight lifted off you, really. You know, that kind of way. It's and I remember then when they scored the pen, I remember Dudek, he was just sensational, you know what I mean? Like doing all the Bruce Gobbelaar stuff and all, and just the messing around. And I remember Milan, even looking at the Milan team prior to the penalty starting, they were heartbroken.
Yeah.
They were standing around and they were shattered, they were heartbroken. And like, we were dead on our feet. Absolutely dead on our feet.
Remember before the penalty, and Dudek is just like a Leon thing carrying like, just do all this, face. And Dudek's looking at him thinking, I have no fucking idea what you're saying, mate.
He probably hadn't got a clue what Carragher was on about.
You would have had your mortgage on Shevchenko scoring a penalty, but he took one of the worst penalties.
We're talking about this, but we're actually ruining the podcast we're going to do when it comes to actually like the anniversary of Istanbul. We'll have one to say.
Well, you never know. We might be back there again.
Yeah.
Why not? You know.
But it was just a sensational moment because, you know, forget about winning it. When you look at the team, we kind of look at our pathway to the final. We kind of know right to even be there. How did we even end up being there? You know what I mean? It was just
on the pathway.
crazy.
My dad brought me and my brother to for the Labour Kills match in the last 16 where we won 3-1. Even after being there for that and all, you still didn't realise the magnitude of how hard it was going to be to get to the final. You know what I mean? That was just a great experience to be there. That wasn't a bad team, a bad Labour Kills team either. You fair that the team and all. I remember meeting Rudy Voller before, and my dad was like, "I don't know who that is," and I was like, "No." He's like, "Rudy Voller," and I was like, "Rudy, photograph, mate. You wouldn't sign your photograph." And you know that Liverpool fans, like I was only a kid, like me, you know that Liverpool fans beside me, and they're like, "Who's that?" And I was like, "Rudy Voller, German legend." "What do you mean who that is?" Whereas 2 minutes before, and I was like, "Not that. No idea who that is, mate." Like to go on and be that Juventus team was a phenomenal team as well. Nedved, Cannavaro,
Del Piero,
that was a phenomenal event. Like to beat Juventus, and then we just do a special regarding the ghost goal someday. Just really want to rub it into Chelsea fans.
Or Scott Carson being in goal for Liverpool against Juventus.
Yeah, shout out to Scott Carson. Yeah, the ghost goal. I mean, that ghost goal could happen again if these semi-finals work out the way we think they might.
VAR goal 1-0.
I must get on to me mate Luis Garcia and see if they do a podcast with us.
Be deadly, wouldn't it? God, I was hitting him up on Twitter all last week after the draw for the crack. So then, so we move on from Istanbul, even though we could sit here for an hour just talking about Istanbul.
Sit here for an hour, sit here for a week.
Yeah, and Chelsea come in again for Gerrard. And I remember I was heartbroken. Rick Parry did an interview, and he said that Steven Gerrard would be leaving Liverpool and would be a Chelsea player next season. I couldn't believe it. And then last minute, he changed his mind again. And this really was last minute, you know what I mean? Because I think if you're a Liverpool fan and you were going to get your jersey printed at that time, you weren't getting Gerrard on the back, and everyone got Gerrard on the back, you know? So then we move on. 2006, the FA Cup final against West Ham that we've already alluded to, the Steven Gerrard final, as we call it. Craig, talk to me about that goal.
My God. What's your man's name? Cromkamp or something? Remember that fella at the wing back? What's his name?
Jan Cromkamp.
Swings a ball in. Fucking Joe Soap ball in. Header gets cleared. I remember it. I think Sissoko and Hayden Mullins or something went for the ball. They both missed it. Gerrard comes out of fucking nowhere, runs onto it, smashes it into the bottom corner. Oh my God. I don't think Liverpool or West Ham knew what had just happened. And you know, when he celebrated the goal, it wasn't even like a relief. It was like, this is what I can do. You know, the way he kind of celebrated. It was like, expect nothing less.
I think like every ounce of adrenaline in him fell out of his body when that hit the net because he didn't know what to do.
He just kind of like
Liverpool fans like
God.
It was what we would call probably his most famous goal celebration and one of his greatest goals.
You know, the angle he came in, like it wasn't like he was coming directly on. He came from, you know,
at an angle,
fucking unreal. Like.
When he talks about it as well, like so that's come to me and I've just hit it and when I'm just thinking to myself when it left me foot, it took forever to go in, and then I'm just thinking if this goes wide, I'm gonna get a bollock in here.
I remember him hitting the ball and it connected with his foot. And I remember it taking forever to get to the goal. And I just said to myself, just please burst the back of the net with this, please. Because we were absolutely, I mean, it was a terrible final for us, really.
We were diabolical. Second half.
We were really
bad. Jamie Carragher that day, Jesus Christ. It was like Jimmy Triardi morphed into him or something.
Yeah, and wasn't it amazing with everything that went on in the game with Carragher? You know, that his mate Gerrard steps up and saves the pushes on the day. Like, you know what I mean? So move on then. Liverpool eliminate Chelsea from the Champions League again, we just alluded to it. the ghost goal. You know, and then, you know, it's our second time in what, 3 seasons. We're back in the Champions League final against AC Milan.
That was in Greece, wasn't it? In the final?
I think so, yeah. And
Yeah,
then, then we go on, and like we go into this final, and there's hope and there's optimism. You know, we're going in, we're quite confident, you know, the Miracle of Istanbul. We've put it to these lads before, and we lose. Memories of that one.
That Milan team as well, like it's not like they'd taken their foot off the gas. That was still a like a world class Milan team. But as Stephen himself says, like that was a better Liverpool team. Like when you think about it, we should have lost 2005, but there was nothing wrong with. You want to lose, you want to win Champions League finals. We'd more chances in the 2007 final. We just couldn't take our chances, you know. And the goal, Dorcoit's goal, the goal we got back just came too late. I think maybe if we'd had another 5 or 10 minutes, we could be sitting here saying we won another Champions League. But, you know, it is what it is. And Zaghi was absolutely phenomenal that day, you know. He scored two world-class goals. Like, you know what I mean? He's one of the best strikers in football that there was. You know, it's just all about on your day. Like in 2005, I believe that Milan at half-time thought they had it wrapped up, and you know that they hadn't got that hunger in the second half that they had in the first half to get out of the traps fast. Whereas whatever was said in the dressing room at half-time for Liverpool, I don't think anybody believed that any player in that dressing room believed we were going to win. They might say now that they do, but I don't think any player in that dressing room believed that we could win that final in 2005. I do believe, however, though, that they believed they could go out with their heads held high, that they could get back into the game, but probably still lose. But in 2007, that Milan team was relatively the same. I think Shevchenko had moved. No, I think Crespo had moved on, and that's why Inzaghi started. But as I said, it was a better Liverpool team. Not overly better. It wasn't like they fucking brought in 5 or 6 world class players. They Bellamy. I think Fowler was back in the squad. Dorcoy was there. Was Crouch in that squad?
I think he was.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah, he was.
I think he was. You know. But come here, I don't lose any sleep over that final because that was kind of Milan getting their justice. If we'd have got our goals back probably 5 or 10 minutes beforehand, it could have been a different story. But I don't think any player in that Liverpool team, you listen to Stevie and Jamie talking about it now, it was Milan making sure that they didn't repeat the same mistake twice. And even though we the better side, they just had too much on the day. They took their chances. It was only 2-1, but they took the chances that came to them, and we didn't. So, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, we had to 2005 to sit here and be happy about.
Yeah, it was kind of a balancing act. We won the one we should have lost, and we lost the one we probably should have won. So
yeah,
balance itself out. So we look into 2007 to 2012. Is an interesting period. It's kind of there's a lot of transitional stuff going on, but again, this man, the measure of this man, he keeps on still performing and continually keeps on breaking records in this period. You know, he plays his 400th game for Liverpool in a league match against Arsenal, in which he scored, 400th game, He was the first Liverpool player since John Aldridge in 1989 to score in 7 consecutive games in all competitions. And remember now, since John Aldridge, we're talking here about a midfielder now. We're not talking about a striker. You know what I mean? So that's it. He was voted the 6th best player in the FIFA, World Player of the Year in 2007, only behind Kaká, Messi, Ronaldo, Drogba, and Ronaldinho. So this is the company he was keeping, you know what I mean? Which is, they're all world beaters, really. If you think about it, they're all number ones. There's no such thing as 1 to 6 or 1 to 7 in that, you know. Made his 300 appearance for the club, 300 Premier League appearance for the club on the 13th of April 2008. Goes out and undergoes groin surgery at the beginning of the 08-09 season. And he made his 100. He scored his 100th career Liverpool goal in a 3-1 win in the group stage of the Champions League against PSV. Incredible. 100th goal. He made his 100th appearance in European club competition for Liverpool, 10th of March 2009, against Real Madrid. We bet him 4-0 and he scored twice. 4-0 against Real Madrid. He scored twice.
On the half volley, you know, when I came into the box and he had
what a performance that was. That performance was Torres absolutely raped Real Madrid that night. Remember the ball? Gerrard played a ball into him, and with the inside of his bad foot, he put it through Cannavaro's legs, and the goal was ruled out offside. Torres was absolutely unbelievable last night. But as I said, Gerrard says that the best football he played was when Torres was with him, and that night was absolutely. Find one Liverpool fan that thought we'd beat Real Madrid 4-0, and I'll give him a blowjob.
And after the game, if you want to talk about a compliment, after the game, Zinedine Zidane said that Steven Gerrard was the best player in the world at the time, which is an incredible compliment to the man. 13th of May 2009, he's named the Football Writers Association Footballer of the Year, the first Liverpool player to receive the accolade. 2010-2011, Rafa goes. Obviously, Roy Hodgson comes in. You know, where do we even go with this? You know what I mean? This is just.
This is my cue. This is my
cue. So, sometimes we look back on Liverpool through history and we go, how do certain people walk even through the Shankly gates? And, you know, this is one of those moments. I remember when he was signed as manager. I said, you know, and no disrespect to Roy Hodgson in any way, but, you know, that man shouldn't even be walking through the Shankly gates. You know what I mean? They're alone being the manager of our great club. So off we go. You know, misses a lot of 2011 and 12. He has a groin injury and stuff like that. Says in his book, he's quoted as saying at that stage he turned down an official move to Bayern Munich who wanted him. So this is on the back of turning down Chelsea twice and then turning down Bayern Munich. Again, citing that he'd rather win less trophies with his beloved Liverpool than go off and play in a league where it's, you know, success is nearly a given.
Sorry, before we go any further, we just need to just want to name one starting 11 from the Roy Hodgson era, right?
Oh, God.
Diego Cavalieri in goal. Martin Skrtel at right back. Kyriakis and Daniel Agger. Kyriakis is a cult hero. Daniel Agger is Daniel Agger. Martin Kelly a left back. So you have 4 centre halves playing as the back 4. You had Lucas Leivis as defensive midfielder. Alberto Aquilani and Jay Spearin as your holding midfielder and your attacking midfielder. Jovanovic playing on the left. David Amiu on the right and David Ngog front. I rest my case. Let's move on.
Fair play to you for leaving out Joe Cole as the number 10 and Christian Paulson. So respect for leaving them two.
It's unusual.
It's tragic.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, we head off to our home away from home, Cardiff, the Millennium Stadium, while Wembley was being renovated and rebuilt. And we pick up a League Cup against Man City, no less, in a 3-2 win. Or not against Man City, sorry, against Cardiff. We beat Man City in the semi-final 3-2. And then we win against Cardiff on the 26th of February 2012. Again, it was mad at that time, wasn't it? Because, you know, we were so successful in the League Cup. And it, you know, it's often referred to really as our cup, you know, that kind of way. Goes on then and makes us a 400 Premier League appearance for Liverpool. Gerrard scored a hat-trick against no less than Everton in a Merseyside derby. and that's his 400th Premier League appearance. What a way to do it, against Everton and scoring a hat-trick. Again, doesn't get any better. This is a man who's just continually going from strength to strength. So we look at 2012 to 2015, which is kind of, again, he's going out constantly breaking records. His 250th match for Liverpool as captain. On the 16th of September, he captained Liverpool for the 400th time. On the 13th, or October 2013, he became the longest serving Liverpool captain. Craig, chime in here. What's your memories in that period? This is where we start to see, a slight decline.
Yeah, physically, definitely. I think you could make the case that he went into nearly the deep line playmaker as such, because he couldn't motor and drive as he could before, but he could still pick a pass out and he could still impact the game. He could still put the ball in the right areas. Yeah. And dropping him deeper back, it wasn't for the sake of it, and it wasn't because he was a cult hero and he needed to be there. It just made sense, I think, at the time, and it was the right time to do it. Physically, I think you could see his movement wasn't, free flowing, but he still had enough to impact the game, and his vocal, his awareness, all that kind of thing was still very important at the time. His involvement was still, beneficial for us, even in a deeper role.
The 19th of October 2013, he scores his 100th Premier League goal for Liverpool, thus taking him above Kenny Dalglish as the 6th top goal scorer of all time. 27th of April, lads, is a date you're not going to forget, and you'll take it to the grave with you. Was the day we were playing Chelsea.
I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. Oh my God.
Let's preface this first of all. I think the week before we had played Norwich, and we had staged a comeback against Norwich, and I remember getting into the huddle, and in that huddle I thought we were going to win the Premier League, and he was finally going to get his hands on the trophy. In that huddle where we said we don't let this slip.
Yeah.
We go out roughly a week later against Chelsea, and he slips, and I was dumbfounded. I was speechless. It was another moment. It was like one of those moments if you're walking through town and you experience like a car accident or someone getting knocked down or something like that, and like everything around you just stops, and it just all
time itself stops,
and it zooms in. Just in that moment. Dan,
remember the City game, because the football, that was the SAS, Suarez and Sturridge, stick in Sterling as well, and City always had the game in hand on us, and you knew that if we lost any momentum at all, that City were going to capitalise. Remember, my brother had a match up in Walkinstown Park. He was playing for Pats. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember going up. Remember we played United and we beat them 1-0. Daniel Sturridge scored. And I remember I brought the dog up with me to watch it. And Liverpool match only started as my brother's game was finishing. So I'm walking down through Crumlin Village watching the match on my phone. And I had the dog with me. And Sturridge scores. And I let a fucking mighty roar. It was like, yes! And half of Crumlin Village stopped and looked at me. I was like, Liverpool are winning 1-0 against United. And people were like, all right, yeah. Fucking head case. But I remember that because I think we went on a run of 10 wins in a row. Remember the day of the City game, the City and Liverpool game started. The brothers' pitch was across the road from like a row of houses, and there was a few boys watching the City game in the house, and Liverpool scored 1-0. House went bananas. Liverpool scored 2-0. House went bananas. City scored 2-1. Lads were like, fuck. City scored 2-all. Everybody was just like head in the hands. And then we scored. Coutinho scored the winner. And it was after that game, that was the only game of that run that I thought to myself, we're going to win the league. City still had the game in hand with the comeback versus Norwich, as you said. Chelsea game though. I just remember when the final whistle went, and I just put my head in my hands, and my ma goes, "It's only a game of football." And when I lifted my head, the tears were just streaming down my face. I put my hands up and saying I was a grown man. I can't even sitting down when you brought it up there. I can't believe that happened. I just really cannot. I can't blame him. Like, I know when he talks about it, he could be, if you listen to any of his interviews or conversations, and he's in good humour and he's buzzing, once you talk about that game, everything just falls out. He said himself, till the day he dies, he'll always hold himself accountable for us not winning the league. We set up all wrong that day. We only needed a point. Mourinho, with his usual Mourinho masterclass, when his team could be on the worst run of form ever. And when he knows that he needs to put on a tactical masterclass and just ruin someone's life, he knows exactly what to do. Christensen in the centre half that day was absolutely unbelievable. Just everything that Chelsea did, we just couldn't break them down. We had chance after chance after chance. And then that corner from Iago Aspas, if he walked past me now, I'd take the phone with me, I'd turn the camera around and I'd stab him to death with that pen. What do you do? Everything from that slip, you just knew where it was going. We weren't getting back into the game. But what hurt the most about that was Torres was the one. You know, when he got that ball and he went on the run and he just laid off and he just celebrated there with the Chelsea fans. Because he knew he was fucked over as well by Liverpool. He was promised the sun, moon and the stars. He wanted to stay at Liverpool and build some. And, you know, I don't hold it against him for leaving, but just when you brought it up there, you forget about it. And then when you start talking about it, you just sit and you just think to yourself, why?
He refers to it as the worst 3 months of his life.
Yeah.
You know, without a shadow of a doubt. And to this day, unfortunately, he carries that burden on his shoulder of what might have been, you know. And even when he talks about it, I went and seen him in the Borgosh Theatre for an evening. And even when he talks about it on stage, I remember talking about it. And after talking about it, he actually had to take a 5-minute break and go off stage. He felt, you know, even to this day, he's so devastated. And not even devastated for himself in terms of winning the Premier League, but devastated that he had let so many people down. He says it in interviews that, like, he carried the weight of the city, the club, the fan base, everything on his shoulders that season. And even though Suarez and Sturridge and Sterling, and they were all so good, he said he was still the one who had to carry the weight. He was the leader, and, you know, it was his mistake, you know, and he does say to this day that it was his mistake that cost us the league. And forget about what happened after then with the likes of Palace and stuff like that. I mean, that was just, you know, tragic. It had run its course, you know. So we'll move on from it because it's obviously not something we want to dwell on. It's tough going.
I'll tell you a quick,
ahead,
the only thing, and this is the God honest truth, the only thing that gets me through, my daughter was born on the 24th before that game. Nicole's in the rotunda, said I'm flying around on the Sunday to watch the game, came back around, and she's like, I saw a ghost. She's like, what happened? And what could I fucking say as what just happened? I was so happy on one hand, thank God my daughter was born healthy, safe and everything, but I couldn't put into words or speak about, I said we lost 2-0. I couldn't go any further. I was absolutely, it hurts even thinking about it, you know. I can't even picture that. I even want it.
Well,
you know? It was just as well, after that result as well, Rodgers got it all wrong for me. Like the Crystal Palace game, 3-0 up and trying. Did he realistically think we were going to beat Crystal Palace about 23-0? You know, you're 3-0 up, you take the 3 points, he puts on attacking players. Just that end to this season for me, just Gerrard having to live, he'll live with that. He'll regret that for the rest of his life. I remember sitting looking at him, it was like that at the final whistle, and my man goes, it's only a game. And when I looked up, I was just bawling my eyes out. And then to see Suarez, like everyone, as much as he's a horrible little bastard at time on a football pitch, when I seen Luis Suarez roaring and crying that night against Crystal Palace, you knew when people sign for Liverpool, you become part of the family. You know what I mean? People talk about you could stay Liverpool for 10 years, not win anything, but they'll build a statue for you. That meant everything to Suarez. And when you seen him crying that night coming off the pitch, that was every one of us. You know what I mean? That was a whole fan base. That was grown men, young children. That was everybody capitulated into one picture of him bawling his eyes out.
And if you take it back, the first person who said, "Get the camera," Steven Gerrard, straight over and says, "Get out, away. I'll look after him."
That's what I was going to say. The measure of the man was he was the first man over to Suarez to make sure he was okay. Because, I mean, you were talking about the emotion and the breakdown happening in front of your eyes, in front of the world's eyes on TV. And, you know, Gerrard, again, as captain, carrying the weight of the club and the expectation that he went over to make sure his teammate was okay. And that's a measure of the man, you know. So, you know, January 2015, Gerrard announces that he's leaving Liverpool at the end of the season. He had a couple of conversations with Brendan Rodgers stating that, you know, he was going to have to take a bit of a step back, that he would be used more as a sub and all that kind of thing, which didn't sit well with Gerrard at all. You know, Gerrard was waiting for a contract offer to come along. The contract offer kind of didn't come along. They were kind of stalling on it and stuff like that. And I think relations with Brendan Rodgers at the time broke down really. And I know Stephen to this day has spoke about it after the fact
that was the start of the start of the end for Rodgers, wasn't it? Yeah. You know, you take 20% of Steven Gerrard, and he's better than 100% of some of the midfielders that were in the Premier League at the time.
Yeah, and I suppose Brendan, with the disappointment of you know, not winning the league, you know, changes kind of had to be made, progression had to be made to try and go again, you know. But you know, whether I thought it was a bit out in the open in the media the way it was handled, you know what I mean. And I thought for a club legend like Gerrard, who had given his life to the club, I thought the level of respect could have been a lot more, you know. So the 4th of February 2015 makes a 700th appearance for Liverpool in an FA Cup tie against Bolton. 22nd of March would be a date that you don't forget either. Gets sent off after 38 seconds.
Just gonna say, left a stamp on the game. See what I did there?
Yeah,
was that Raphael?
No, it was Ander Herrera. Still has
was the Herrera? Oh,
he still had,
like a whinging little bitch. He took a snap at Gerrard first. What did he
did. Yeah, centre midfield. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
I don't think though we could argue about the sending off. I think Ander Herrera still has the tattoo on his leg to this day.
Yeah, him and Nanny get in touch every now and then. Like, show us your scar on your leg.
So Gerrard made his 500 league appearance for Liverpool in a goalless draw against West Brom on the 25th of April. He was the third player to achieve 500 goals or 500 appearances in the Premier League for one club, after Ryan Giggs and, of course, his former teammate, Mr. Jamie Carragher. His final 2 games finished in defeat, and it really was a heartbreaking and a poor send-off for Gerrard. I remember the day he finished, I think we got beaten by Palace, wasn't it, 3-1?
Sam Allardyce Palace, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember being on the pitch and being interviewed, and, you know, he was heartbroken at leaving the club. I remember he had his girls on the pitch with him, and he was being interviewed. And, you know, in the usual distaste of the media in the UK at times, they asked him, how did he feel going out with a 3-1 defeat to Palace, I think it was. And I just remember at the time that being just the totally wrong moment to bring up something like that. Like, as if the Palace game meant anything. The Palace game meant nothing.
Irrelevant.
And it was irrelevant. And the fact that you know, I mean, I think it was the week before we got beaten 6-1 by Stoke or something, didn't we?
Stoke, no, was that the last game of the season? No.
Was Stoke the last game of the season? The Palace was the second.
Was that not the The last away. Palace, I thought was the last game, was it?
I thought Palace was the last game. I thought Stoke was the last away game. Maybe it's the other way around. Not too sure.
It's well, yeah. You kind of just them
Yeah.
two games are kind of put in a box, so you never remember.
We choose to forget them. But yeah, I mean, you know, for a man who had given us so many memories, to go out of the club like that, and I mean, not necessarily to go out of the club like winning a trophy or Wembley or something like that. That's all well and good if it could have happened. But I mean, to go out on those two defeats and, you know, be so poor and surrender ourselves in the way that we did, I thought was a poor send off from. But the fans were unbelievable. I remember he was in tears on the pitch, and it was just, again, it was another one of those moments that, you know, another legend had left the club. And we were...
That mosaic they did for him was unbelievable.
Yeah, and I remember that summer was a weird summer for me because I was thinking, like, what's it going to be like now? What are we going to do? Like, we're going to come back now in August, and like, the Liverpool team's going to take to the pitch, and there's going to be no Steven Gerrard. Like,
that was the first time as a fan, because like, signings come and go, you know what I mean? There's very few clubs out there in world football who have homegrown players like Carragher and Gerrard. Well, I always remember probably 2 or 3 years before Gerrard retired, and saying to myself, he's going to retire soon. Like, even though I'm not saying it's only football, like, you know, like, I think football is more than a game to me, but when it started creeping into your mind, like, Stevie's going to be retiring soon, like, and you're thinking to yourself, what's it going to be like when he goes? Like, who's going to be in the dressing room to grab players by the scruff of the neck? Like, it was so surreal that was the first time in my life that you ever, regarding something that wasn't your family or it wasn't work related or some way, you're thinking to yourself, what, like, it's coming to the end, and you're thinking that, like what you were saying about that summer, you're like, what's it going to be like the first day going back into training? Like, do you know what I mean? You don't have Gerrard there to welcome the new fan or the new players. And you remember all the stories of, yeah, we haven't got much pulling power. You wouldn't get on the blower there and ask your man, would he sign for a Stevie? Like, you heard that all the time. Like, we just didn't have that anymore. It was so weird. Like, for me, going on how that season finished with them bad defeats and all, I don't think there was done enough to say goodbye to him. You know, it was kind of just like that game. There's the mic, say a few words, and bang, that was it. You know, for me, there wasn't enough done to say goodbye to Stevie. He deserved a massive celebration, regardless of whether we won a trophy or not. You know, that should have been something bigger done. I know it's only football at the end of the day or what have you, but you know, I just think that they could have done some bigger. Maybe the Echo Arena and like a night with Steven Gerrard and ex-players coming. Like, this is your life, you know what I mean? Ex-managers coming out. I just think for what he did for the club that they didn't do enough for him to say goodbye.
Yeah, and I suppose not only the club, but even the city. You know what I mean? Like, he was just a massive, you know, fabric of the club, of the city, of the people.
Of his country.
I mean?
Country,
and it's... You know, for him to go out like that, and you know, you kind of got the feeling with him as well, you know, because he wasn't that he wasn't that flamboyant or anything. He was a young lad who, you know, achieved his dream, and he was kind of at that stage he had resigned to himself that he wanted to go off kind of quiet. I don't think he wanted a big deal made of it. He just wanted to kind of drift away, as often real legends, as we call them, often do. They don't want the big notoriety that comes with that kind of stuff.
Just get off the horse and ride into the sunset.
Yeah, and I suppose going forward, Craig, we would look forward to maybe one day after his success up in Scotland and maybe a bit of experience in Europe, hopefully, that he will come back one day to manage our beloved club.
We the three of us, go on, sorry.
Yeah, and hopefully one day win that Premier League title that he covets so much, you know.
The three of us here know full well, and there has to be a divide. You can't have Frank Lampard 2.0. Oh, Klopp goes, we get Stevie in, fucking brilliant. No, not a chance. He needs time. He needs a few years under the belt in European competition or English competition. Take as long as he needs, but I want him to come in when it's right for us and it's right for him, and we have a good go at it together, and hopefully everything will come full circle and he'll lift it as he deserves to do. I don't want him coming in after Klopp and, you know, shit hits the fan and he's out in 6 months and he ruins his legacy and all that. I don't want that. I really don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think listening to his interviews up in Glasgow at the moment with Rangers and you know, hats off to him with the success he's had up there. It's been unbelievable. But I think you can hear in his interviews, he knows himself like that, you know, it's going to take time, but he also knows that one day he will return. There's no doubt about it.
Well, just because I got to show off there, Niall, just jump in with the whole managerial thing. As Craig said, when Lampard took over the Chelsea job, I couldn't give a fuck, like United, if he'd have stayed there for 2 or 3 years and they ended up relegated. I said when he took over that job at Chelsea that was a whole romance thing, that I love by the fans. He'd come in there, everything would be great, and we'll give him all the money in the world. He's not capable of managing a big club like that, going from the Championship to Chelsea. Stevie done an interview last week, and he was asked about the Liverpool job, and he said, "Listen, mate, I'm happy here. Liverpool fans don't want me as Liverpool manager just yet. They want Jurgen Klopp." And he says, "You know what? So do I. I don't want to go to be Liverpool manager yet." Stephen knows that if he goes to Liverpool, if Klopp left in the summer and Stevie came in, within 6 months, if we were languishing 10th, 12th in the league, and FSG turned around and says, "You know what, Stevie, we thought that you could have came in," like when Kenny came back after Hodgson, was it?
After Hodgson, yeah.
Like when Kenny came in, G the players up. It's not like football was back in the day. You know what I mean? It's not like Stevie's going to come in and get a team that's still mediocre in the league and just all of a sudden they're fucking second in the league and they're 2 or 3 points off City or whoever it may be that's top of the league. He will be manager of Liverpool one day, and I do believe that Carragher or Alonso will probably be his assistant, and I do believe we'll win the Premier League over him or with him at the helm. But you know, this podcast was just to talk about the legend that was Steven Gerrard, and for me, I just want to say thanks to him because he gave me some of the best nights of my life. He also made me cry like a baby when we lost against Chelsea. But yeah, for me, I just want to say thanks to him because the name of the podcast is Legends of the Game, and for me, he was definitely one of the legends of Liverpool Football Club. So kudos to the man, and I can't wait till we're over in Liverpool getting arrested for being stupidly drunk when we won the league under him.
Absolutely. I don't think I could add too much more to that. Lads, as always, it's been brilliant, emotional, a roller coaster ride as always when we look at these careers. And we look forward to the day that he returns to the club. I mean, in our eyes, the man never really leaves the club. He only takes a sabbatical, really, you know. So, yeah, thanks for coming on. As always, lads, head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Also on Anchor for your audio versions. We'll have the boys on again. No doubt this Legend series is going to continue because it's really enjoyable going down these memory.
Next week we're doing one on Jimmy Triori.
Yeah, about 10 minutes. Yeah. So thanks a million, lads, again for coming on, and we'll talk to you again soon. Cheers, boys.